Welcome to Pastoring on Purpose, the official podcast of the Center for Ministerial Care. Join us for this meaningful conversation led by Dr. Tim Maness and the Ministerial Care team about intentionally navigating the challenges, burdens, and opportunities facing church leaders and their families. We exist because healthy churches depend on healthy ministers. The Center for Ministerial Care. For ministers, for families, for you.
Welcome to another episode of Pastoring on Purpose. This is Dr. Tim Maness here in our studios, and alongside me is Ryan, our producer. Ryan is going to be with me today. Ryan, how you doing, man?
I'm cold.
It's Cleveland.
It's a chilly, wet day, and the problem is not the air temperature; it's the temperature of the rain. The water is coming down very cold.
Yes.
And I have cold fingers and toes because I'm diabetic, so I always get frigid.
Cold fingers and toes. Well, thank you for that information for our listeners. That's really important, right? No, well, we're not going to be talking about Ryan's fingers and toes the whole time. Don't worry.
I'm excited to get into this conversation.
You know, before I kind of dive into this, Ryan, we are really excited. We will be at General Assembly.
Yes.
Announced that. We did that 2 years ago in Indianapolis. We're looking forward to being in Orlando.
It was fantastic when we were there. It was a lot of fun. We recorded probably a dozen episodes. Many of them were short. They were micro.
It was more than that. It was probably about 20.
Really?
Yeah. And some of them were shorter, but yeah.
It was a whirlwind of fun and information, and I think some really good stuff. And we had some amazing guests, and I'm really looking forward to being able to do that again. And maybe folks can stop by and see us and be like, "Hey, it's the podcast guys."
The podcast guys. Welcome to the podcast. I don't know how I feel about that. Hey, podcast guys.
I believe you mean Jeffrey Sargent.
Yes.
He's the podcast guy.
He's the podcast guy. He would love that, by the way. We are looking forward to that. And then also we're getting really close to our 100th episode.
Yeah, just a couple more.
And so we're looking forward to the 100th episode being a big celebration. A lot of podcasts don't get to that part.
No.
They don't get that far, do they? And so I cannot believe, 100 episodes.
4 years.
4 years.
Yeah.
Wow. That's incredible.
It's wonderful.
One of the things I hear quite often, Ryan, in counseling is pastors coming to us for counseling because they're burned out. They're exhausted. And when they kind of start looking at, or when we start looking at some of the reasons as to why they might be feeling the way they're feeling, you start to realize that there's a culture in the church of always being accessible, always being available. One of the questions I get quite often in counseling is that if I've pastored there for 3 or 4 years, or however many years it is, and there's an expectation already that I'm going to be there, or when this is going on, or I'm going to respond, as soon as I get a text message, because if I don't, people start to wonder why. Because, like I said, you've set that expectation, or if you haven't taken a day off, or rested, or taken vacation, how do you incorporate a healthier way of leading when you have already set the precedent?
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
What we mean by is just always accessible. Really honestly doing the work that you feel that is needed to be done.
Right.
Always feeling like you need to be there and just really pushing yourself. Well, in our mind, we feel like, or we like to think we're doing what God's called us to do.
Yeah. In fact, unhealthy can actually be great. It's just not sustainable.
That's true. That's a good way of saying it. It's not sustainable. And, God created us to go at a certain pace.
Right.
Right.
Yeah. And it can be great that you are there all the time for every event, for every person.
Kudos to you.
That's great.
That's great.
It's not sustainable.
It's not.
That's why it's unhealthy.
Yeah. And eventually it does catch up to you. And you're really, honestly, you're modeling, I don't know how else to put this, but you're modeling for your congregation that this is more important perhaps than your family.
Yeah.
There's only so much time in a day. So when do you take time for them? And it doesn't need to be secretive. Your church needs to know you have a family.
Right. And
they're important. And it's a lot easier to do that when you're going into a new church because you're the one kind of setting those boundaries and you can kind of get a fresh start. It's a lot more difficult when you start to realize, I need to start implementing this now when you've been pastoring there or leading there for so many years, or even a year or two, or even a few months. So it takes time.
Yeah.
Right.
And whether you are showing up on the doorstep of the church, your very first meeting, you've just arrived, or you've been there for a few years, either way, it will take sometimes months, sometimes years to shift the culture to a point where it's behaving in healthy ways with healthy expectations. Because if you change too fast, people get upset because they fear change. If you change too slow, the culture will never change because it just slips into the old ways in between.
That's true.
So it's important to recognize that it does take time, though. It's not instantaneous.
No, but you can do it. And I think, when you get to that point, that's a wonderful feeling, because you start to realize, man, there's some things that I can do that I can be healthier and I can lead more effectively. And letting your church know in a way that a healthier you is going to produce a healthier church. It's so cliche. I understand that, but it's so true, right? That it's hard to lead from a place of depletion.
Yeah.
When you're just absolutely exhausted. I don't make good decisions when I'm exhausted. You don't want to, when I try really hard to get a good night's sleep, get enough rest, because I know I'm going to be doing counseling all day, more than likely. And sometimes that's 4 hours, 5 hours, at times 6. I try not to get to that, but we do what we can. But if I'm counseling with no sleep and no rest, that's dangerous.
Yeah.
Honestly, if I go and I know I'm going to have surgery, okay, and if the doctor that's going to be performing surgery on me did not get any rest or sleep at all, I'm not going to feel very good.
No.
Right? My life is in your hands, right? Literally.
Right.
And so I think it's important to understand that how we treat ourselves, how we operate, how we view ourselves in a lot of ways doesn't only just affect us, but it affects our family, our friends, our church, the people we care about the most even. Because if we're not getting rest, we're not taking care of ourselves, it's going to affect our mood. It's going to affect our behavior. It's going to affect our decision-making. What should be a 2 or 3 becomes an 8 or 9 very quickly.
Yeah.
Your misplaced anger happens. And so it's really important to have that kind of self-awareness to know, okay, and letting your leadership know and letting your church know, I want you all to practice Sabbath. I want you all to be able to take vacation, and I want you to be able, and many of them, not that you have to give your parishioners permission for that, obviously, but if you have staff members, but you want to model that because that is important.
Part of being a leader is demonstrating healthy behaviors for your followers to emulate.
Yeah. And it's tough because I feel like in our culture today, our church culture as well, in some ways, when we start to celebrate numbers and how busy we are, and we're doing this and we're doing that, we're giving the wrong impression. It's almost like that's where our identity is. Your identity is not in what you produce. The fact that you were created in the image of God is enough. And so we can work from that. But I think, and I want you to share here too, Ryan, but as far as our family goes, your family, we have, I want to be able to protect my children to a certain, there's boundaries there, right?
Yeah, absolutely. There are things that we keep from our kids for health reasons. If we're having a tight money week, my wife and I might not tell our daughter that we don't have any extra money this week, right? Because she's 16, she doesn't need to stress about that. Yeah. She doesn't need to go to school and be like, my parents are so broke. Yeah. That's unhealthy for her. She doesn't need to worry. Those are adult worries, and so we keep those to us, to my wife and I. And I think that the same is true with pastors. There are things that we should be demonstrating and putting borders on. And I think that's how we stay healthy.
Yeah, I agree. And you can just kind of piggybacking off of your illustration a little bit, but there are things that are between you and the Lord that no one else needs to know. Yeah. There are things that are between you and your spouse that is sacred. That's just between you two.
Yes.
And we should protect that in a healthy way. I think it's really important. And And so, Pastor, you're listening. This is going to be a shorter episode today. I hope that's okay. I think it'll be okay. Make sure that you're taking the time for yourself. Make sure that you're allowing yourself to process what you're going through, how you're feeling. You don't want to get to a point, and it does happen sometimes, where you start to lead from a place of reaction, where we just become reactionary to what other people are doing, and then other people are controlling us. Yeah. We're not in control then.
And as a pastor, if that's the behavior you're demonstrating, your congregation can start to also behave reactionary.
They can mimic your, yes, absolutely. Anger plus anger is probably not a good combination, right? Or anxiety plus anxiety. And so to be able to model, I think, that healthiness that we're talking about, I think it comes from a good place of having a sense of identity of who you are and being comfortable with that. I am not a good singer. I can act like I am, but I'm not. I'm going to be honest with you. I mean, nobody wants to hear me sing, okay? It's awful. It's absolutely awful. It's dreadful. But if I don't know that, if I feel like I'm the best singer in the world, I might look like one of those people that go on American Idol that, makes a fool. I don't know, right? But I think it's important to know who you are. I'm not the best preacher in the world. I'm okay with that. I do feel like I'm a pretty decent counselor. And to be able to listen and to be able to be present and understand, or at least try to understand what our ministers are going through and the hurt and pain. And Ryan, I hear it every day, man. I hear it every day. And I hear what our kids are going through and the anxiety that they're dealing with and the pressure that they have at school, and not only school, but the church and social media and what they're going through. And as I'm listening to them, it's hard for me not to take that in. And I'm compassionate. I feel it. We're not robots, right? And so if you don't feel it, then you probably need to get into a different profession, because I do think compassion and care is very important. But at the end of the day, when my day is over with, it's important for me to leave it there. Because if I take it home with me, that's going to affect me in a very negative, visceral way. It's going to affect my family. And there can be anger that can come from that, because you see and you're exposed to so much hurt and pain that if you carry that, it's bound to affect you eventually. Don't you think?
Yeah, I agree. So if I'm a pastor and I'm listening, give me just like 2 or 3 quick tips that can help me to have and demonstrate good mental and emotional health.
Okay. Well, I think we first have to recognize that, and we cannot be emotionally and mentally unhealthy and be spiritually healthy.
Yeah.
So if we want to be spiritually healthy, we want to disciple, our church, our parishioners, our people, and move in a healthier way. We will recognize the need, obviously, for the spiritual component, but also for the mental and emotional. Okay. I think understanding our limits is going to be important. That no resources around you, counseling centers, and medical doctors. Right, I'm not a medical doctor, right? And there are times when I get, a case where I feel like it's important to refer them to a psychiatrist or to another therapist. You want to do what's in their best interest, what's really best for them. I think you have to have a kind of good sense of a good self-worth, right? Not egotistical, right? You want to be confident but not cocky. Mm-hmm. Right, or arrogant, but
you do have to value yourself enough to set those boundaries.
Absolutely, and recognizing that God called you for a reason. Trust your calling, trust your training, trust your experience, trust your God. Ministry, especially today, I think is a very lonely place, but I think it's just very difficult. It's tough enough as it is. For those of us listening, don't handicap yourself by leading from a place of exhaustion and depletion, because that's when really we can get ourselves in trouble if we're not careful.
Yeah,
because it's just, you get to a place where you become numb and you don't feel anything anymore. And you would do anything to feel something once again. If you don't have boundaries, those boundaries become very difficult to see, and that can be very dangerous. So I just want to encourage you. I know that sounds very uplifting, doesn't it? But but just understanding that you taking care of yourself is not just a selfish act. It's not selfish at all. As a matter of fact, it's one of the more communal, unselfish things that you can do. And because it's going to help you become a better husband, a better wife, a better father, a better mother, a better leader, a better pastor, a better whatever. Because you're taking yourself into account. So, but I mean, what are some things that you do to kind of help yourself mentally? Because I mean, that's something that we all have to take into account.
I mean, I think that me time is important.
Okay.
Right. And especially if you have a job like a pastor where there is, where so often your job is to give them time.
Right.
And so I think to me, it feels like that would make me time that much more important. And it would also make me feel guilty about me time, because then I'm thinking, well, it's selfish, but it's not.
Man.
It's not. Like I found that if I have a day where I come home from work and I'm so stressed that the first thing I do is I go to the restroom and I just hang out in there for 10 or 15 more minutes than I actually need.
Yeah.
Right. And I realize like, oh, I'm decompressing.
Yeah.
That means that something during the day had triggered something, and I should take a look at it,
right,
and give some thought to is there a correction? Sometimes there's not, but maybe there is. Is there a better thing I could have done during the day to have handled it?
And I'm going to use that illustration. We're going to keep it, by the way.
Okay.
Going to the bathroom is part of life. I think also when you come home and the first thing you do is go to the restroom and you just stay there, and you stay there because you've had enough.
Right.
And you're depleted, and you don't want to deal with the stress of the kids and the spouse, and you've already given everything, or you're afraid of how you're going to react because
you're hiding.
You're hiding, and that does happen.
Yeah,
I hear that. That should be a sign. It's time to slow down a little bit.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, when we feel anxiety and we feel like things are kind of out of control, there's a tendency for us to speed up. It's the worst thing you can do.
Our bodies and our minds will give us the signs.
Yeah.
We just fail to read them most of the time.
And if you don't listen to those signs, your body will shut down on its own.
Yeah.
You won't have a choice.
Yeah. And hopefully you won't have hurt someone else on the way.
Right. That's a good point. And so I hope this reaches you. I hope you're listening. Take care of yourself, please. You're important. Don't just take other people into account, but also take yourself into account as well. Because God is going to use you and flow from you and through you. Make sure you're doing things that you can, and I hate to say it's so cliche, got to get better than just using, but to do the best what God's called you to do, to be able to, I'm trying really hard, I'm going to say it, but be the best version of you, right? Just be the best, but I think it's important to recognize that. I think one of the lies that we feed ourselves quite often is that with God, there's we can fulfill and go at with the power of the Holy Spirit, we can be 24/7, or God's going to give us strength, right, to get through, or we tell ourselves like it's a season. Yep. Well, it's always a season. There's always going to be a need. There will always be a need. There's always going to be something. So if you use that as an excuse, you're always going to have that excuse.
Yeah. And I think it's important to remember that your congregation will be more upset with you if you push yourself to a point where you can't perform than they would be if you just took a break. A healthy congregation is going to say, if he had just told me he was so tired, I would have absolutely left him alone.
Yeah. Right. And there's ways to do that.
Yes.
Right. Yeah. You don't just say, I'm tired. Can you just leave me alone? Right. Obviously.
I have a friend who works construction. He always tells his crew when they first start a new job, he tells them, if you find that you are pushing yourself and working extra hard and because you're trying to impress someone, you're trying to get it all done or whatever, he said, always remember this. No one's going to remember that you got the job done right. But everybody here is going to remember that you passed out and left in an ambulance.
That's true. That will leave an impression.
Yeah. And so think about that. Like, Like, keep yourself paced in a healthy way, and don't fall victim to your own behaviors.
And we're not telling things that are not scriptural. Trust me, I believe in being scriptural, and I love theology. I really do. And you know, we're told to run this race. It's a marathon. It's not a sprint.
Yeah.
And we have allowed culture. We have allowed society. We've allowed, I hate to say it, church culture in some ways, dictate how we live our lives. And Scripture calls for us to be countercultural. We're not supposed to be going with the flow of culture. As a matter of fact, we're supposed to be going against it. And so when culture is saying you are what you're worth, or what you produce, or how much you work, or what you make, and you always need to, do more and more and more. It's all the kind of this commercialized, never enough.
Yeah.
You're never satisfied. Well, when you model that and you lead your life like that, you're no different than society. You're just the same. You're just moving in the same direction as that. And I believe God's called us to be different. And I think God has called us to be a light in a world of darkness. That he who has called you out of darkness into his marvelous light, I think as 1 Peter says. And let's be countercultural. Let's allow ourselves. We're not healthy also. I mean, I don't know. They did some studies on this. Pastor, if you look at it, pastors are, we're one of the more unhealthy, I hate to say professions, that's what they call it. Can't say calling, but we're up there. We're not very healthy.
Yeah.
Because pastors, leaders, people who are in ministry are caregivers, great at caring for other people. Awful at caring for themselves. And so don't lose sight of who you are. You're just as important as the people you minister to. And so that's what I want to leave you with today. And I hope this reaches you. Because Ryan, I see this every day. Just people leading from exhaustion, just ready to give up, ready to get, it's their family's hurting or they're hurting, and they don't know what to do. And they don't know who they are anymore. You take the title pastor away, they don't know who they are. And that's a tough place to be. It's a tough way to live.
Yeah.
There's a better way.
I think that often pastors can be caught up in a bit of an achievements game, right? With their personal expectations upon themselves.
Yeah.
You mentioned social media and how it's affected culture earlier, and how it's, when you're on social media, you're chasing the likes, you're chasing the followers.
Yeah.
How many shares did I get? How many likes? How many followers? And sometimes, you see the same thing sometimes at church. How many people did we save this week? What was attendance this week? Those sort of things. And we've got to keep our eye, I don't want to say keep our eye on the ball, but really that is what I'm saying. Like we are about being a healthy church with appropriate behaviors and expectations on one another, and fulfilling those with one another so that the community is stronger.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. And what you said, those things that you talk about, as far as church numbers, and those are important, don't get me wrong, but that's not why we do what we do.
And it certainly shouldn't be how we're judging ourselves.
No. There's so many factors that go into that too.
Yeah.
It's a factor. Okay. It is a factor. Like if you don't get me wrong, but at the same time, there's so much more to ministry than just that.
Yeah.
And if that's what we're in it for, we're in it for the wrong things, in my opinion.
Yeah.
It's not.
It's a terrible way to judge your worth.
Yeah, I agree. So thank you for listening to us. We are approaching our 100th episode, and I want to say thank you. We're going to celebrate. Not a lot of podcasts get to that point. I'm kind of pinching myself a little. I still can't believe we've done, almost 100. We're going to reach that milestone. We want you to celebrate with us, and we couldn't do this without you, without your support, the listeners, the feedback that we get. It means so much to us, and thank our leadership for allowing us to do what we do. Obviously, they support us. They know we do counseling, but that's pretty much it. They don't know anything beyond that, quite frankly.
But also thank you, and thank Dr. Sargent and everyone else who's been on the show, all of our guests and everybody.
Yeah.
Thanks to you all
for
having enough things of value to fill up 100 episodes.
I don't know.
But truly,
I hope
also
it's a
true.
value.
It's a joke, but also it's true. Like,
Yeah.
there is, I think there's been a lot of episodes that have really helped a lot of people. And I know, because we've heard from Donna, I know that the podcast has brought people to seek counseling.
Yeah.
And, even if it only found one person and one person called and got the help they needed, these are worth it.
Yeah. Ryan, thank you for, quite frankly, making me sound better than I am. I know a lot of editing and a lot of things go into what you do. And so I don't make it easy, probably. There's probably a lot of stuff you have to edit out. I don't know.
Well, you're welcome.
But thank you, man. It's good to have you be a part of our team. We can't do it without you. So that's enough of that. Okay. So enough of that. We're going to move on. Once again, we're celebrating our 100th coming up pretty soon, and we're really excited about that. We're excited about what God's doing here in this office, and continue to pray for us. Lift us up in prayer. We, for all of our leaders out there, our pastors, our youth pastors, our staff, even if you're not in ministry, everyone's in ministry to some extent, even though it's not full-time ministry. We thank you as well, and continue doing what God's called you to do. So for this episode of Pastoring on Purpose, this has been Dr. Tim Maness for myself, for the wonderful producer as well as co-host in this episode, Ryan. We will see you next time on Pastoring on Purpose. Until then, God bless.
You've been listening to Pastoring on Purpose, the official podcast of the Center for Ministerial Care. Join us next time as we continue our purposeful progress to becoming better pastors and better people.